Hello, I'm Bernard Hickey from interest.co.nz and welcome to a special housing report brought to you in association with Bank of New Zealand. Today we look at figures from the Real Estate Institute of New Zealand and quotable value. They look at both volumes and prices of houses sold in August and also looks at the values, comparing like for like. Now the Real Estate Institute gathers together all the house sales during the month and totes up a simple median and also looks at the total number of sales. One thing to look at is volumes. Now in August of this year they were up 21.1% from a year ago, but prices up not nearly so much, in fact just 1.4%. What I'd like to do now is show you our interactive chart, which is at the bottom of this article, which allows you to look at REINZ volumes over the last few years and play with the chart. So let's just go to that article and that chart at the bottom of this article, and you can see what's happening here with real estate volumes. And you can see that through 2004 to 2007 there was quite an increase in volumes, up to nearly 10,000 in some months. We're back down at 5,192 in August. That's up from 2010 and up from the lows we saw in 2008, but not nearly as back to the levels we saw through the boom time. Now, one other measure that we look at is the stratified measure, which is a measure the REINZ has come up with after talking with the Reserve Bank, which takes into account the skew you see when there's lots of houses sold in a particular price bracket. Now, if there's lots of houses sold at the top end of the market, that tends to skew the median up, the raw median up. So the stratified measure, many would argue, is the best measure of what's happening in house prices overall. And you can see here when you click through to the link for the interactive chart on stratified house measures that you can see what's happened with house prices over the last few years. Now when you scroll back here, you can see that there was quite a surge in house prices from 2003-04 up to a peak in 2007, and then through the recession we saw prices drop back a bit. Now overall, in New Zealand, the stratified measure shows prices down around about 4.7% from the peak. And obviously over that period we've had inflation as well, about 13%. So real house prices are down from the peak about 17%. Now, when you look at figures from QV, they also show that prices are up a little bit in August, about 0.1%. But all of this disguises some regional variations. Let's look now at the chart for the stratified measure from the REINZ on Auckland, and you can see here that we hit a peak again mid-2007, down a bit, up a bit, and we're heading back towards that peak. And in fact, according to quotable value, we're only 0.3% below that peak in Auckland. So there's some strange things happening in Auckland versus the rest of the country. And when you look at what's happening in Auckland, you can see that there's a couple of things going on. Firstly, a lot of migration, both from the rest of the world and within New Zealand to Auckland. A lot of leaky homes, which has reduced supply in Auckland. And we're also seeing some people move from elsewhere in New Zealand. Now, when you look at Christchurch, it's actually done reasonably well in the last few months as well, despite all the dramas with the earthquake. In fact, because of those dramas with the earthquake. And prices have risen from their lows of a few years ago, up about 4%, depending on which measure you use. The big loser, however, regionally is Wellington. Prices are down 8.1% from a year ago, according to the REINZ. QV say that Wellington prices are down 1.9% from January and are down 7.7% from the peak, so worse than the rest of the country. Now obviously supply is an issue in Auckland, but it's also a supply nationally. And I want to show you this chart which we have on building consents for residential consents nationally, and it gives you a real sense of what's happening internationally, certainly in New Zealand. And when you go back and have a look at what's happened over the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen a fall from around about 2,000 new building consents a month through 2005, 6, 7, and we're back below that 1,000 mark. So a lack of new supply coming onto the market, particularly in Auckland, is a factor in prices. And we should also watch out for what's happening with interest rates. The Reserve Bank this week is expected to leave interest rates on hold at 2.5%, the official cash rate, and is not expected to increase it until December at the earliest. In fact, some people are saying maybe not until next year. I'm Bernard Hickey. That was a special housing report brought to you in association with Bank of New Zealand.